Hey there. Thanks for watching. Today is week 3 of our series, Because He Lives, We Run. Today's message is Disciples Run with Witness. And this message is based in John chapter 20 from verse 1 to verse 10. The big idea I want to share with you today is resurrection creates witnesses in motion. Many people assume that faith begins when all questions are answered. But the resurrection story tells a different truth. In John 20, nobody runs with a complete understanding. Mary runs confused. Peter runs impulsively. John runs and believes. But even his belief is still unfolding. What sets them apart is not clarity. It is movement toward Jesus. A witness is not someone who has mastered every answer. A witness is someone who has seen enough to move toward the truth. John Wesley understood this deeply when he described faith as a lived reality, not abstract agreement, but a life set in motion by grace. The resurrection creates urgency, not because everything is understood, but because something decisive has happened. Because he lives, we do not wait until faith feels complete. We move toward Jesus, and faith grows along the way. Have you ever noticed how different people react to unexpected news? Some people freeze, some people talk, some people immediately Google it, and some people run. Think about fire alarms. No one calmly debates whether it's real. You move first and sort it out later. That's exactly what happens here in John 20. Mary runs, Peter runs, John runs, and even outruns Peter. The resurrection doesn't produce a quiet, reflective Bible study. It produces movement. Christian faith has never been about intellectual perfection or emotional readiness. It has always been about response. What's fascinating is that none of them fully understand what's happening. No one says, "Ah, yes, bodily resurrection, just as he predicted." Instead, confusion, urgency, and motion all happen at once. This matters for us because many people today think faith requires certainty before movement. Once I understand more, then I'll believe. Once my doubts are gone, then I'll follow. Once life slows down, then I'll explore Jesus. But resurrection doesn't wait for that. It interrupts, it provokes, it sends people running towards questions instead of away from them. And today's story invites us into that same kind of faith, not a settled faith, but a responsive one. Because he lives, we run, not away from questions, but toward Jesus. First thing I want to point to you is Mary runs with confusion. This is John chapter 20, verse 1 and 2. Mary Magdalene runs to the disciples and says, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have put him." She is wrong, but she is moving. Mary does not run with good theology. She runs with deep love and incomplete understanding. She assumes theft, not resurrection. Yet, she runs towards community, not into isolation. This is important. Movement toward Jesus often begins with misunderstanding. Augustine famously wrote, "I believe in order to understand." Faith does not always begin with insight. It begins with pursuit. Think about a child who hears a loud noise in the house at night. They don't sit still and analyze the probabilities. They run towards someone they trust. Mary runs toward the disciples because confusion does not cancel devotion. Jesus does not rebuke her for being wrong. He receives her movement. Many people hesitate to move toward faith because they think doubt disqualifies them. Mary's story says the opposite. Doubt often becomes the doorway through which resurrection enters our lives. Remember this. Discipleship does not start with certainty. It starts with direction. Mary runs with confusion, and Jesus will soon meet her with clarity. Second point I want to bring to you is this. Peter runs with impulse. John 20, verse 3 and 6. Peter hears the news and immediately runs. He doesn't pause. He doesn't hesitate. He charges toward the tomb and goes straight inside. This is classic Peter. Bold, imperfect, unfiltered. Peter had failed publicly. He denied Jesus 3 times. If anyone had reason to stay away from the tomb, it was him. Yet, resurrection creates courage, even in the aftermath of shame. John Chrysostom observed that Peter's eagerness reveals hope, fighting through guilt. Chrysostom notes that Peter runs because love refused to stay still, even when the heart is wounded. Think of someone who's hurt a relationship deeply. The hardest thing is showing up again. But love compels movement before confidence returns. John Wesley understood this kind of grace-shaped movement. He preached that God's grace always goes before us, enabling response even when we feel unworthy. Wesley called this prevenient grace, grace that moves us before we move ourselves. Peter doesn't run because he's confident. He's confident. He runs because resurrection makes return possible. Discipleship is not about flawless obedience. It is about honest movement toward Jesus. Third point I would like to share with you this, and this is John runs with belief. John 20, verse 8 and 9. John arrives, sees the empty tomb, and the text says, he saw and believed. But immediately John adds something striking. They still did not understand from the scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Belief comes before full understanding. That is crucial. John does not have the whole resurrection theology worked out, but something about the empty tomb, the folded grave cloth, the absence of chaos awakens trust. Ignatius of Antioch wrote, Jesus Christ truly suffered just as he truly raised himself. Early Christians didn't believe because everything made sense. They believed because something undeniable had occurred. Think of trusting a bridge for the first time. You don't know every engineering detail. You step because the structure holds. Faith grows in motion. Steve Addison notes that movements spread when belief becomes embodied action. John believes, and that belief will soon become proclamation. Resurrection faith is not static agreement, it is lived trust. John runs, sees, believes, and continues walking into deeper understanding. Because he lives, belief doesn't end movement, it begins it. The challenge I would like to give to you is this. Run toward Jesus with your questions, not away from them, not waiting until they disappear, but bring them with you. Discipleship is not waiting room for the certain. It is a pathway for the willing. Ask yourself, where have I been standing still because I wanted clarity before commitment? What step have I delayed because I assumed doubt disqualified me? This week, take one intentional step toward Jesus. Faith does not require mastery, it requires movement. May God bless you.